was one of the smartest basketball players I've ever coached, Julius Peppers. Beating Duke at Duke, was pretty cool. Yeah. And going on that winning streak. But the problem with that winning streak was we weren't getting better. And I could see it. And that's a hard thing to manage. Like, it's hard to manage success. So we're going on an 18-game winning streak, but yet I could tell the performance is slipping. So how do you get the attention of the team and say, guys, we're winning, but we're not playing well? And that's the whole thing that Nick Saban talks about, is the process. Bill Walsh, the football coach of the 49ers, talks about process. You don't play to the score. You play to perform well. And if you perform well, we're talented enough that we should win every game. But we started to slip, and all of a sudden we lose at Clemson the day Dale Earnhardt died. And then we couldn't gain the momentum back. We had too many bad habits, and we lost 5 out of our last 10 games. And that was a hard way to finish. That's where coaches say, like, I think in today's day, everyone would like to go undefeated, but you'd probably rather lose a couple games to get the attention of the players. Yeah.
Right. So that 2002 class that we talked about, you got Raymond Felton.
Yeah.
You got Sean May.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for a championship ring, by the way. I don't have any hardware from that championship team. Everyone comes up to me and says, "Congratulations, that was your team." And I told Dick Bedore, I said, my first year will be good. My second year we won't. My third year we'll be rebuilding. Are you tough enough to get through it with me? Mm-hmm. And so I knew that was in the pipeline. I knew that recruiting had suffered. And so we had to bring in talent, and we did. Sean May broke his foot. We go from not being ranked to ranked 12th in the country. We beat Kansas in the Garden. Roy Williams had a Final Four team, and we beat them in the Garden, starting 3 freshmen and 2 sophomores. Sean breaks his foot at Christmas time, and then I start David Noel at basically center at 6'5", and so I'm starting again 3 freshmen, 2 sophomores. We go 19-16, and I knew, especially after the fact, that it was being worked that Coach Williams was going to take the job, and I really didn't at that point have a fair shot to keep the job, and that's the politics, and that's the reality, and I used to not be okay with that, but I'm okay with that now. That was the reality that was going on behind my back, and but that's life. And so, and in that process, even though I didn't like that, I think from a learning standpoint, you have to learn, as we do in athletics. Okay, you lose a game, you got to watch the film and see how you can get better. So that's why I took this leadership journey, that I really look back and say, gosh, I didn't manage Coach Smith properly. I didn't manage that transition properly. I should have spent more time with the secretaries. We had 4 secretaries on staff. 4. Most college programs are lucky to have 1. And so I didn't manage that transition properly. However, it was July 11th when I got the job. So why did I get the job July 11th? That was all financial.
Right. Because
Coach Guthridge had 3 weeks of basketball camp. Coach Williams had 3 weeks of basketball camp at Kansas. It's a lot of money. And the Nike checks that come every 6 months, it's a lot of money. So I think that's why the transition was so delayed. And then once Coach Williams said no, that threw a fly in the ointment. And Coach Smith and the process with me, I don't get hired to July 11th. It's a tough time to make wholesale transition, when you're supposed to be on the road recruiting. And I shouldn't have gone on the road recruiting. I should have spent time with the secretaries, and I should have managed the coaching transition better than I did.
A couple more, and we'll let you get out of here, yeah. Coach. Let's talk about this year's team. 29-7, 16-2 in the ACC, most ACC regular season wins in the history of Carolina basketball. That's a pretty hefty statement. Yet they bow out in the Sweet 16 to Auburn in really blowout fashion. In your opinion, did this team achieve what they their true potential, or was this maybe one of those years where you look back and this was a lost chance to hang another banner?
Well, I think the tough thing with our business is that you're measured on the NCAA tournament. And when you have one game that you can easily lose, I don't think that's a fair judgment. Now, fair, we're talking about fans, fanatics. They're not rational, right? We're not rational. The media is not rational. So from that standpoint, you could say they underachieved. But, 16-2 in the ACC, they had a successful season. Auburn went to the Final Four. That's a pretty darn good team, pretty talented team. So, my team in '84 with Michael Jordan, we go undefeated, 14-0 in the league. And we lose to a bad Indiana team in the Sweet 16. Did that team underachieve? Yeah, probably did.
Yeah.
Probably did. And, some of that was due to injuries. Kenny Smith broke his wrist. Brad Doherty dislocated fingers. If I had to say, Coach Smith may have overcoached that game, looking back as a coach. We shouldn't have let Steve Alford get 28 points, so did this team underachieve? I don't think so, because I think Auburn was that talented. And we were talented, but not that talented. Like, you see the draft, like Nasir Little, yeah, very talented, but was drafted 20-something.
25th, yeah.
Luke May wasn't even drafted, was he?
No.
So, Luke May had a great college career. But, this wasn't a freaky talented North Carolina team. And so I think that they got a lot out of the talent they had. And so for that, I wouldn't necessarily say they underachieved unless they would have lost to a team that wasn't as good as Auburn.
One of the guys on this year's team that was just so impressive was Kobe White. I mean, Kobe White was phenomenal. You talked earlier about being able to play with Michael Jordan, who had a phenomenal freshman year. When you look at where his freshman year stacks up with some of the greats in program history, I mean, he has to be pretty far up there now.
Yeah, just I tend to pump the brakes on those comments because he's not doing it against the talent that you had to play against in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, because all these guys go pro so early. Mm-hmm. So he's doing that against who? No, I'm not poo-pooing what he did, but it's like, Tyler Hansborough. Is Tyler Hansborough the best player to ever play at North Carolina? Statistically, you could say yes, but he's not better than Sam Perkins or James Worthy or, Mitch Kupchak, or, he was doing that, at 23 years old against 19-year-old skinny freshmen. That's my point, is that it's a different era. So Kobe, as good a year as he had, and I love him. I had him like number 3 or 4 in my draft, my big board draft. That's great what he did, but I wouldn't put him as better than Phil Ford, as a college basketball player. I wouldn't put him as, at North Carolina. It's impressive in today's era. Let's say the 21st century, yes. But I just tap your brakes a little bit because he's not doing it against, Mark Price or Johnny Dawkins, or he's doing it against what's his name at Duke, Trey Jones, or
Trey Jones.
Yeah, that's my point.
Gotcha.
He's not doing it against Len Bias, Ralph Sampson.
Right.
Tyler Hansborough didn't play against Ralph Sampson or Lenny Bias or those types of big men. That's my point. Again, I'm probably getting some hate emails and tweets.
There's a picture of, I think it's you, Roy Williams, Dean Smith, and Bill Guthridge at the 1993 Final Four. Very popular photo among the Carolina family.
Yeah.
Roy Williams at one time was exiled when he didn't take the job in 2000. Mm-hmm. You had your situation for your 3 years where the family was kind of broken.
Yeah.
It now appears that the family's back together, bigger and better than ever. Can you just describe personally what the Carolina basketball family means to you and what it is? Because we think we're a part of it as fans,
right?
But you live it,
right? It's real. It's real. I felt like I was the black sheep of the family for a while, because when I took the job and I didn't keep the staff in place, I got criticized a lot by former players, and I still know that there's some hard feelings by some former players, and that's hard. But that's, if you have a big family, there's going to be some hard feelings, and so I get it. And the undercurrent there is that we all care. And the Carolina family is real. Like Mitch Kupchak is a good friend of mine. John Kuster is a good friend of mine. Those people care. I will reach out to any former Carolina player and try to help them in any way, shape, or form. It's a special fraternity. We have special handshakes. We have special sayings. It is a family, and it's a powerful family that I don't think anybody in college basketball has. Maybe Duke has it now with Coach K being there so long. Probably do. But this goes on from Coach Smith coaching in the early 60s through Bill Guthridge to Roy Williams. I had a little stint in there, but the consistency of those guys. Now you have, Lenny Rosenbluth, who played in the 57 team, was, still feels a part of it. So when we go to basketball games, I see Lenny and his wife. It's like we're part of the family, and that is a really cool feeling. And I know in comments I've read from players in the NBA that they're somewhat jealous of that, and they realize that it is, in fact, a real fraternity.
So the last thing that we'll ask you, this was an interesting question. I think that, we were both discussed a little bit before you ended up arriving. If you don't take the job at Carolina, do you think that you're on a college basketball sideline today?
Yeah, I think I'm still at Notre Dame. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm still at Notre Dame. I think, because I think I could have grown through my mistakes there. Mm-hmm. I could have been allowed to have some growing pains, and hopefully I would have been smart enough with the AD at the time who took over, didn't hire me, but was Kevin White, who is one of the best leaders in college athletics, who's the AD at Duke. And he probably would have said, if I had some things that he saw that needed smoothing over, some rough edges, and I respect him enough that I probably would have listened, and he could have coached me through those rough edges. And, basketball not being the primary sport at Notre Dame, mm-hmm. I could have grown through that and still be there. Yeah, and I think about that a lot. That hurts. I mean, that's real scar. But that's life. So, and Mike Bray has done a tremendous job.
That's right.
And is a good friend.
Well, we're a little biased, but we're kind of happy you're here today. So
yeah,
if you were the coach at Notre Dame, you wouldn't be here. No, we're going to take it. We're going to take it.
God, we make plans. God laughs. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing that, hopefully has gotten through this is my walk with God is probably better than it would be if I was still at Notre Dame, ironically, even though you have touchdown. I call it 3-point Jesus. I do think that, God doesn't promise you a smooth path. And, I just wish my path wasn't as rough. But right. There are a lot of people worse off than me. And I do think that it helped me with my walk with God that, I realize I need him, and he defines who I am. I don't need – we all want it. We all want more followers on Twitter. We all want more money. By the end of the day, my goal is to get into the big house, and that's